What if I told you that the story we know about Medusa doesn't tell the whole truth? Far beyond the tales of terror and petrifying images lies an ancient enigma, shrouded in power and tragedy, challenging our understanding of mythical figures. Today, we're going to delve into the unrevealed mysteries of Medusa and Poseidon, two of the most complex and misunderstood figures in Greek mythology. Was Poseidon merely a vengeful god of the seas? And Medusa, was she just a victim, or is there more to her story that has been lost in the mists of time? In Greek mythology, Poseidon is known as the god of the seas, earthquakes, and horses, armed with his mighty trident. Brother to Zeus and Hades, he's a figure of authority and strength, worshipped and feared by sailors and cities reliant on the sea for survival. Medusa, on the other hand, is often remembered as the monstrous Gorgon, with serpents in place of hair and a gaze that turns people to stone. However, before her curse, she was a priestess of unparalleled beauty, dedicated to the temple of Athena. The convergence of their destinies weaves a tale of injustice and transformation, echoing through to our modern days. Poseidon, one of the most revered figures in the Greek pantheon, is the lord of the seas, earthquakes, and horses. As one of the 12 Olympian gods, he plays a crucial role in mythology, responsible for powerful and often destructive natural phenomena. Brother to Zeus and Hades, Poseidon shares with them the inheritance of the universe after the Titanomachy, the great war against the Titans, receiving dominion over the seas. His depiction with a trident reflects his control over the waters, symbolizing his ability to stir or calm the waves and storms as his mood dictates. Poseidon's importance extends beyond the bounds of the sea. He is worshipped as the creator of horses, revered in various city-states for his influence over the horse, a crucial animal for war and agriculture in ancient Greece. His temples and festivals, such as the Isthmian Games held in Corinth, celebrated both his brutality and his benevolence. In mythology, Poseidon often wields his power to punish those who displease him, as evidenced in the myth of Athens, where he vies with Athena for guardianship over the city, or by inflicting terrible punishments on figures like Odysseus. Before becoming one of the most tragic figures in Greek mythology, Medusa was a priestess of great beauty dedicated to the worship of Athena. Unlike her sisters, the other two Gorgons, Medusa was mortal. Her story begins in a temple dedicated to Athena, where her beauty caught the attention of Poseidon. This encounter triggered a series of events that would forever change her form and destiny. Medusa's transformation into a monster is not just a punishment but also a reflection of the tensions and complexities of Greek myths, where the gods interact directly and often cruelly with mortals. Medusa's transformation is one of the most dramatic and discussed aspects of her legend. After being courted by Poseidon in Athena's temple, Medusa is transformed by the goddess as punishment, not for her own fault, but for the desecration of her temple. Unable to punish the sea god, Athena directs her anger towards Medusa, turning her beautiful hair into snakes and causing her gaze to petrify anyone who looked upon her. This act marks Medusa not only as a victim of divine injustice, but also as a symbol of danger and feminine power. Medusa's legacy in Greek culture and art is vast and complex. She appears in numerous works of art, primarily on armor and shields, like Athena's shield, as a symbol of protection against evil due to the deadly power of her gaze. The paradox of her image, simultaneously beautiful and terrifying, captures the duality that characterizes many Greek myths, where the divine and the mortal, the beautiful and the terrible, are often intertwined. Medusa remains a powerful figure in mythology, symbolizing the transformations, both physical and metaphorical, that define and destroy mythological characters. The story of the encounter between Medusa and Poseidon in the Temple of Athena is one of the most dramatic and significant episodes in Greek mythology. Poseidon, drawn by Medusa's beauty, pursued her to the Temple of Athena, a sacred place where violence or sexual relations were strictly forbidden. This act of desecration was a grave insult to the goddess of wisdom and war, who was revered as a virgin deity and protector of cities and temples. The involvement of Medusa, a priestess who was supposed to maintain chastity, adds a layer of tragedy to the story as she becomes a victim of the passions and power of the gods. The consequences of this encounter for Medusa are devastating and transformative. As punishment for the desecration of her temple, Athena transforms Medusa into a gorgon, a creature with snake hair and the power to turn anyone who looked directly at her into stone. This punishment is ironic and cruel, as Medusa is more a victim than an active transgressor. Medusa's transformation serves as a dark example of the severe retributions that gods can impose, reflecting the submission of women and the arbitrariness of deities in the Greek mythological universe. There are several versions of this story in Greek mythology, each reflecting different aspects of ancient Greek society and its norms. In some versions, Medusa is portrayed as a seductress who willingly engages with Poseidon, while in others, she is clearly a victim. These variations in the narrative highlight the ambiguous role of women in Greek society, where they were simultaneously idealized for their beauty and virtue and severely punished for real or perceived transgressions. Medusa's treatment can be seen as a manifestation of social anxieties regarding female chastity and religious authority. The myth of Medusa and Poseidon serves as a window to understand the morality and religion of ancient Greece. Medusa's severe punishment for Poseidon's act reflects the importance of purity within sacred spaces and the unquestionable authority of the gods. Furthermore, Medusa's transformation into a monstrous figure can be interpreted as a mechanism of social control, a warning to women about the consequences of violating norms of chastity and decency. This aspect of the myth illustrates how Greek myths were used to convey and reinforce the social and religious norms of the time. Throughout the centuries, the encounter between Medusa and Poseidon and its subsequent consequences have been reinterpreted in various ways, reflecting changes in social and cultural norms. In the modern era, Medusa has often been symbolized as a figure of feminist resistance against male oppression, a recontextualization that highlights her story as an example of injustice and female resilience. These modern reinterpretations challenge traditional readings of the myth and encourage a fresh examination of ancient stories in light of contemporary understandings of gender and power. Feminist interpretations of the encounter between Medusa and Poseidon bring forth a critique of patriarchy and the way mythological narratives were shaped by male perspectives. In this view, Medusa is not just a victim of Poseidon's lust, but also of the power system that allows her punishment to be harsher than that of her aggressor. Feminists argue that Medusa's transformation into a monster by the goddess Athena, another figure of authority within a hierarchy dominated by male gods, symbolizes how patriarchal societies demonize and marginalize women perceived as threats to the status quo. This reading highlights how the myth reflects real conflicts about female sexuality, purity, and punishment. The figure of Medusa has evolved from a simple tale of terror to a complex symbol of protection and transformation. In many cultures, the image of Medusa with snakes in her hair, possessing the power to petrify, has become an amulet against evil, representing the idea that feminine power is both protective and destructive. This duality reflects a reassessment of the feminine as a source of strength, not just vulnerability. In the modern context, Medusa is often seen as an icon of resistance against oppression, flipping the gaze that's subjugated to represent a challenge to the gaze of the oppressor. Some modern scholars of mythology viewed the story of Medusa as a meditation on the other in Greek society, where Medusa represents the foreigner, the marginalized, or the exiled. This interpretation suggests that the myth of Medusa may have served to reinforce social norms by showing the danger of challenging the established order. Medusa's transformation can be understood as a metaphor for the dehumanization of minorities, or those considered outside normative standards, an interpretation that resonates with contemporary discussions of inclusion and social justice. From a symbolic standpoint, Poseidon represents the chaos of human emotions and the unpredictability of nature. His dominion over the sea, an element often associated with the unconscious and the most primal and uncontrollable aspects of the psyche, can be seen as a manifestation of the brutal and often irrational power that can arise from both nature and humanity. Poseidon's encounter with Medusa in Athena's temple may symbolize the clash between civilized order and primal forces, a battle between the rational and the irrational that is central to the human condition. Carl Jung and other psychoanalysts explored Greek myths through the lens of archetypes, seeing figures like Medusa and Poseidon as representations of universal aspects of the human experience. From this perspective, Medusa may represent the archetype of the anima, the feminine aspect of the masculine psyche, that has been transformed into something monstrous by male fear of femininity. Poseidon, on the other hand, can be seen as the animus, the masculine aspect of the female psyche, that is both creator and destroyer. These interpretations offer a deeper insight into the myth, suggesting that it speaks not only of gods and monsters but also of internal struggles and transformations that are relevant even today. Medusa is perhaps best known for her snakes in place of hair and her petrifying gaze. Snakes are a powerful symbol in many cultures, often associated with renewal due to their ability to shed skin, and danger due to their venom. In the case of Medusa, the snakes amplify the dangerous and yet enigmatic nature of the character. Her petrifying gaze has been a recurring theme in art, from ancient sculptures to Renaissance paintings and modern depictions in films and comics, symbolizing the deadly power and inescapable aspect of her myth. This gaze reflects Medusa's ability to silence and paralyze her opponents, both literally and metaphorically, serving as a potent symbol of feared and misunderstood femininity. The trident of Poseidon is one of the most distinct symbols in Greek mythology, representing his dominion over the oceans and his ability to create storms and earthquakes. As an instrument that can both give life and destroy it, the trident symbolizes Poseidon's dual power as a god capable of generating abundance and devastation. Additionally, horses, often associated with Poseidon, who is said to have created the first horse, represent strength, speed, and freedom. These elements have been highlighted in numerous works of art over the centuries, from ancient Greek friezes adorning temples to romantic depictions in European painting, where Poseidon is portrayed emerging from the waves with his trident, riding chariots pulled by sea horses. Over the centuries, the figure of Medusa has evolved in the arts. Initially, in ancient Greek artifacts, Medusa is often depicted grotesquely, with a protruding tongue, fangs, and bulging eyes, reflecting the horror she inspired. With the Renaissance, the representation of Medusa humanizes, with artists like Caravaggio presenting her as a tragic figure whose beauty is preserved even in her monstrous form. These changes reflect transformations in cultural and social interpretations of the myth, with Medusa transitioning from an abominable creature to a symbol of tragedy and complexity. Poseidon has been a central figure in Western art, symbolizing the power and majesty of the sea. In ancient Greece, he was often represented on grand vases and murals, dominating the waves with his trident. In the Renaissance era and subsequent periods, Poseidon appears in paintings as a majestic and fearsome god, often alongside sea creatures like hippocamps. These representations not only showcase the importance of Poseidon in Greek religion and culture but also emphasize his dual nature, capable of bringing both calm and storm with a gesture. The symbols associated with Medusa and Poseidon have transcended the borders of ancient Greece, infiltrating modern popular culture where they continue to evolve. Medusa, in particular, has become an icon in the fight against oppression, represented in marches and protests as a symbol of resistance. Poseidon, on the other hand, remains a popular representation of the sublime and marine terror, often incorporated into stories and films that explore the power and mystery of the oceans. The durability of these symbols in various forms of art and culture demonstrates their ongoing relevance, and their ability to adapt to new contexts and meanings. Medusa and Poseidon, two of the most emblematic figures of Greek mythology, continue to influence modern culture in profound and varied ways. In cinema, Medusa is often portrayed as a terrifying creature, as seen in the film Clash of the Titans, where her ability to turn men into stone is a central point of the plot. This representation emphasizes her role as the quintessence of the femme fatale in literature and visual art, where the ambiguity between her beauty and danger is explored. Poseidon, on the other hand, has been a recurring figure in films exploring oceanic themes, such as Aquaman, where elements of his mythology are adapted to reflect issues of sovereignty and conflict in the underwater realm. In literature, Poseidon and Medusa are figures of great interest. Poseidon appears in works such as Homer's The Odyssey, where his influence is central to the unfolding of Odysseus's journey. In contemporary context, he is often used as a metaphor for the uncontrollable forces of nature and the human psyche, as seen in the novel series Percy Jackson and the Olympians, where Poseidon is reinterpreted as a more accessible and fatherly character. Medusa, on the other hand, appears in poetry and novels as a symbol of injustice and female resistance, standing out in works like The Gorgon's Gaze by Camille Paglia, which explores her role as a feminist icon. In contemporary art, Medusa is often portrayed as a figure of empowerment, a significant shift from her more traditional representations as a monster. Artists like Luciano Garbati have reimagined Medusa holding the head of Perseus, flipping the narrative of the myth to highlight themes of power and revenge against oppression. Poseidon, too, has been a source of inspiration for artists exploring themes related to the sea and marine ecology, using his image to comment on the beauty and fragility of the ocean in the face of climate change and pollution. In contemporary society, the figures of Medusa and Poseidon offer rich allegories to discuss themes such as power, sexuality, and environmental justice. Medusa, with her petrifying gaze, is used in debates about the male gaze and female objectification, while Poseidon represents the forces of nature that can be both nurturing and destructive. These narratives are explored in discussions about feminism, human rights, and sustainability, proving that ancient myths still have a vital role in shaping our understanding of complex issues in the modern era. The enduring cultural impact of Medusa and Poseidon demonstrates the ability of myths to adapt and remain relevant through the centuries. In an era where issues of identity and power are at the forefront of public debate, these mythological figures continue to offer a rich source of inspiration and reflection. Whether through direct adaptations in films and literature or through symbolic representations in social and cultural discussions, Medusa and Poseidon continue to influence and be reinterpreted, maintaining their presence in both popular imagination and contemporary intellectual discourse. The figure of Poseidon, while widely recognized as the god of the seas in Greek mythology, involves mysteries that persist to this day, challenging both scholars and mythology enthusiasts. One of the main mysteries concerns the origin and significance of his trident. While some texts suggest that the trident was forged by the Cyclopes during the Titanomachy, other lesser-known accounts hint that this powerful weapon could have older, esoteric origins and meanings, possibly related to pre-Greek cults worshipping the sea. This mystery opens up debates about the possible prehistory of Poseidon as a god in even older cultures, perhaps even as a Proto-Indo-European deity associated with primordial waters. The enigma of Medusa's transformation from a beautiful priestess to a monstrous figure is another topic that generates intense debates and speculations. Classical historiography often reports this event as a punishment from Athena due to the desecration of her temple. However, there are lesser-known theories that suggest Medusa may have been the target of a much older curse, linked to rituals and beliefs about the divine feminine and the sanctity of virginity in antiquity. Some scholars propose that Medusa could originally represent a goddess or priestess of a matriarchal religion that was demonized as patriarchal cultures took precedence. This mysterious aspect of her story invites viewers to question traditional interpretations and explore the deeper layers of her myth. In addition to ancient mysteries, the figures of Medusa and Poseidon continue to be reinterpreted and debated in modern contexts, generating new puzzles. For example, Medusa's transformation is often revisited in contemporary feminist debates, which question the narrative of her vilification and explore her role as a victim of divine and mortal injustices. Similarly, the figure of Poseidon, traditionally seen as a manifestation of masculinity and power, is re-examined through the lenses of environmental and psychological studies, which view his actions and attributes as representations of the uncontrollable forces of nature and the human unconscious. These discussions open up new perspectives on ancient myths, encouraging viewers to consider how these stories could be understood in ways that reflect contemporary concerns and values.